Dear friends, today, Chinese electronic newspaper 163 published an article with the title, Confrontation Turns to Cooperation, the Federal Reserve Finally Surrenders, Trillions of Dollars Will Flow to China and Biden Fails. Labor. Next, let's follow the content in this video. On the second day of 2024, data released by the U.S. Treasury Department showed that the total U.S. government debt has exceeded the $34 trillion mark for the first time in history. What is intriguing is that less than 2 days after the U.S. Treasury announced this news, new news came from the Federal Reserve. According to the Wall Street Journal, Fed meeting minutes showed that Fed officials agreed at their December meeting that the interest rate hike cycle may be over. Although there is no specific news showing when the Fed plans to start cutting interest rates, it now seems obvious that the Fed will definitely start cutting interest rates in 2024. It is just a question of the extent and frequency of interest rate cuts. It should be noted that global markets have been waiting for a long time for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates. The Federal Reserve is known as the central bank of global central banks. Its decision to maintain high interest rates actually extracts liquidity from the world. Intuitively, it means that hot money from all over the world flows to the United States, which adds pressure to the economies of all countries. We may guess that the Fed's decision to maintain high interest rates is not only to suppress domestic inflation in the United States, but also to put pressure on the economic development of other countries. After all, when the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, the global economy is trembling. Some weaker economies will easily be the first to be unable to withstand this interest rate increase environment. This is probably what the U.S. government wants to see. Previously, the Fed was very tough-talking, repeatedly emphasizing the need to resolutely curb inflation, implying that it would not end the interest rate hike cycle so early. Now, the Fed may have to surrender to the market in the face of an overwhelming crisis. After all, the high debt of $34 trillion US, coupled with high interest rates exceeding the 5% baseline, is also a heavy burden for the United States itself. To a certain extent, the U.S. government wants to hit other countries' economies by raising interest rates, which can be said to hurt others first. Just paying high interest every year is enough to give the U.S. a headache. It was in the face of this objective pressure that the Federal Reserve finally had to bow its head and submit to the market. As the Federal Reserve enters an interest rate cutting cycle in 2024, developing countries including China will usher in a period of development opportunities worth looking forward to. Since 2022, under the influence of the Federal Reserve's interest rate hike policy, the global economy has been under greater pressure, and developing countries are particularly facing the threat of capital outflows. In order to promote economic development, China has adopted an interest rate reduction strategy that is opposite to that of the Federal Reserve. This has put China under certain pressure from capital outflows and has also had some negative impacts on the RMB exchange rate. Now, with the Federal Reserve finally ending its interest rate hike cycle, the central banks of China and the United States are no longer in the original confrontation state. In an environment where both sides are generally advancing the interest rate cut cycle, China and the United States can better cooperate. A very natural change is that during the cycle of interest rate cuts by the Federal Reserve, a considerable part of the international capital attracted by the United States will flow out of the United States again and find new places to stay around the world. China, with its Guangdong trade market, will naturally be favored by international capital, and there may be an inflow of trillions of dollars of hot money. All in all, in the past 2 years, the Federal Reserve's interest rate hike policy has sent a chill to the global economy, and the financial stability problems faced by some developing countries have become increasingly prominent. However, as a large and mature economy, China has not lost its way in the wave of interest rate hikes by the Federal Reserve. Even if the Biden administration wants to suppress the Chinese economy through the Federal Reserve's financial policy, with the end of the Fed's interest rate hike cycle, any such idea it can only be the end of his life, and Biden and others may feel that they have fallen short. Next, developing countries including China should seize the opportunity. As global hot money increases, it is a good opportunity to promote economic development. Whoever can take the lead in global economic recovery at this stage will be able to win in the next round. To take the lead in the competition for economic development. And is that absolutely a fact? What do you think about this? Please leave your comments below this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can see you again in the next video. Goodbye.